Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the fourth day of December 2019. Well, I need to find my notes here because clearly they had vanished from the screen. Is that them? No. Oh, yeah, I guess it is. Well, I have a couple different ones. I have ones where I have all the stuff that I put under, I copy and paste underneath the video. So I have two of them, and I guess I had that on this one as well. So anyway, I was like, okay, where are my notes? I just had them. Anyhow, if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for coming by. And if you've come back, thank you. Click subscribe. I'd love you to do that and come back again and we'll visit about tarot and runes and learn about them and do, if you have your own interpretations, do put them down in the comments. This is really just about getting a discussion going. So, not everybody has the right answer. We all see this from our own perspective, and we're just here to learn. So click subscribe and join our tarot and rune family. And no, that doesn't mean I'm going to send you anything. You don't have to put an email address down or anything. Just click subscribe and come back. That's all. Anyhow, it's a 4 energy today. So foundation, structure, the earth element. Basically, when you think the 4, you think respite, you think bringing everything into some kind of foundational balance. It's a little bit more expansive than the 2 and not quite as expansive as the 6 or 8, but you're still doing that. Today we have, let's see, transits are as of 10:30 this morning. So we're looking at the sun in the 10th house in Sagittarius. That's a change from yesterday. Talking about success in career, status is important to you, and people should really view you in a positive light. Sagittarians, my husband's a Sagittarian, born teacher. He's a martial artist. We're both martial artists. We both taught Kempo. And he's just very dynamic, very personable. He has a commanding presence when he does that sort of thing. It's just his nature, and people just listen to him. They just, he's the leader in the group always. So anyhow, he's pretty, other than that, he's pretty reserved. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy with him. A sextile between the sun and Juno, you take a protector role. I'll have to see where Juno is in my husband's natal chart and see if there's anything like that for him there. The moon is in Pisces again in the 2nd house. Intuition is high, as our deep feelings, compassion, all of that, but you could be fussy. Taking care of finances due to the 2nd house here influence. Taking care of finances or buying something that soothes or comforts is in order. I talked about that yesterday, going to my yearly trek to go find warm things that are comforting. So I bought slippers, a bunch of them, and I have more to buy still. I might get a new robe. I don't know. We'll just see. I like the one I have, though, so probably not. Conjunct Neptune, between the moon and Neptune, there's a conjunct there. So fantasy might take priority over reality today. So, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just depends on if you have to go out and function in the world, and then maybe, a little more practicality might be in order just to, get in and out of the grocery store in one piece. Avoid negative people also with this transit. Or this aspect. Mercury's in the 10th house in Scorpio still. Intense communications today, probably involving career. You're likely going to want to have an experience where you share ideas with others in a setting like that. So, if you're kind of working solitary, well, maybe it's, because you got a little dramatic. So avoid the drama and come back to everybody, where I think you'll be a little more comfortable. Venus is in Capricorn in the 12th house. And what I take from that is that there's just too much focus on what isn't at the expense of what is. So you're always looking for something else when maybe you have what you need right there in front of you. So, kind of check in with that. a square with Juno. Another, we had a square, or we had a, what do we have with the Sun and Juno? A sextile with Juno taking a protective role. But with Venus squaring Juno, what it's suggesting there is nurturing others is valued. So maybe a more, that would indicate a nurturing would be a more passive type of a role or presence, but at the same time, caring about other people. It's just the Sun's going to do it a little differently than Venus will here in with Venus and Capricorn in the 12th house. So you're going to it's just going to express itself a little bit differently. Mars and Scorpio in the 9th house, again, dramatic, passionate, warrior, adventurous, but at the same time, remember Mercury here in the 10th house in Scorpio, and be a little careful there. Mars energy can get away from you. So Saturn and Capricorn in the 12th house, not particularly trusting of things that are hidden from view. So, if you were watching the hearings this morning, I don't know what happened to Jonathan Turley. I really don't. But the other law professors were brilliant. And although I think that, Turley's trying to come up with something rational here in defense of the guy in the Oval Office, I don't think he can. And I think that unfortunately his colleagues are letting everyone know that. And so, and you'll remember this name, Professor Carlin. I think it's Carlin. Is it Carlin? Karlan? She's brilliant. So if you haven't been watching and you don't have time right now, they're in a break right now. But if you aren't, be sure you find something with her speaking. You'll be amazed at that woman. So anyway, I think though that we're a little not feeling real trusting of things that are hidden, and we want them to come out. No matter what Jonathan Turley, little roadblocks he wants to put in the way. See, he thinks everything's got to go through the courts. Well, no, the Constitution gives these people the ability to function. They don't need to go to the courts unless people are committing a crime by not appearing, right? So, in any event, let's go ahead and get started. I have one more video I'm going to do today, but it's going to get posted over on Patreon. And it's going to be about elements, using elemental correspondences in magic. I still have to collect all of my different examples I'm going to have. But I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to post it sometime today over there at the Patreon site. So if you want to support me over there, support my work, it's a 3-tier experience if you want. The lowest tier is $1 a month, and I actually don't know how they handle that. I don't know if you do that monthly or if you can elect to do it a year for, once a year. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure about that. I'm new on there. So, but basically I'm just doing it to try to offset blog costs and to try to earn a little bit of income. And even if only to pay for all the stuff I need to do all of this. So anyhow, because I doubt that it's going to be any more than that, but you never know. Some people, and obviously my blog, stepping aside, is a kind of a niche blog, being a witch blog. So there's only so much there, that, most people probably wouldn't be interested in it. In other words, it's pretty, focused in that respect. But there are other things on there that aren't necessarily witch oriented. So I don't know. You just never know until you try. So that's what I'm doing. It's a new thing. It's not within my comfort zone at all to do any of this. And so all of this is me trying to step outside of that. So anyhow, let's go ahead and get started and take our first 3 cards. And again, I'm going to do them randomly. I'll take the 13th card each time, and we'll see what the first 3 cards have to say. Maybe we'll take a 4th. I don't know. If not, we'll go ahead and there's my rune bag. We'll move to the runes, and then and then we'll create a geomancy rune to close out with. So here we go. I try to shuffle while I gab a little, so that I'm not taking up time. You just listening to me shuffle, that's got to be irritating. But anyway, we've got the Page of Pentacles to start us out with. Well, you can see his name better there, Page of Pentacles. Earth element, youthful figure, student. Something new on the horizon. Temperance. 14th card of the Major Arcana. A little bit of alchemical change, alchemical transmutation. The Ace of Wands. So we've been sort of doing this in a kind of a yod fashion on these 3-card readings until, of course, I screw it up and have to have a 4th. But one of the things that I think that it just sort of makes sense that inevitably you're going to have a significator or a focal point or an outcome card or something. And you're either going to, the other 2 cards are either going to have something to do with the foundation of this is happening here on the significator, on the center card, or the focal point, or like yesterday is going to be where the center focal card is going to cause all of this or transmute all of this. And I think I want to put Temperance in the center and call that my but we'll see. We'll see if that's the significator, but I think that it is. So let's begin with the Temperance card. We're looking at a card of change. We see the angel with the fire element on the symbol, the glyph for the fire element on its gown there. You see the sun, a disc on its forehead. You see the rays radiating of the sun radiating from around its head, the angel's head. The angel is pouring liquid from one cup into the next, transmuting fire into water. You see the red wings signifying fire. You see the sun rising and over the mountaintops. You see 2 mountaintops. So there's actually kind of a 3rd one, kind of right there on that one on the left. You see a pathway coming down. And since it's not blue, we're going to call it a pathway. But since it ends at the water's edge, I never know if it's like a little stream that's, trickling in and it is implied as such. But we'll just call it a pathway. Through obstacles, the sun is rising. You see irises, yellow irises there at the water's edge. 1 foot in the water, 1 foot on land. Temperance is about moderation. Moderation in all things, basically. But the idea of transmuting will and emotion, okay? You've got the will of manifestation. But then you have to take all of that and allow water to soften all of that, right? It quenches the fire, basically, bringing things into balance. And so if we talk about quenching the fire, I think what we're going to do is we're going to put the ace first and the page second. Now, I'm going to say something about this because in reality, energetically, these 2 cards are very similar. We've got the Ace of Wands, we've got the Page of Pentacles. Now, the page is the beginning, if you will, of the court section of the minor arcana. So if you want to say that it's in 3 sections, you've got the Major Arcana, which is Temperance as part of that. You've got the Ace of Wands in the suit of Wands. Elemental fire begins the suit, contains all energies within that card. And then you move then to the court where you've got the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. And they all have their special little relationships together there. And one of those, we can either look at the page, in this case, as a youthful individual, maybe a message about our something new on the horizon having to do with our legacy or career or security. It would be more interesting if this was a water card, then you could really actually see the components here. But water, I think, is implied with Pentacles because Pentacles is the earth element. It is a passive principle. It's also it's receptive. So is water. But just as much with water, you have change, and with the Ace of Wands, you're definitely invoking change here. You see a hand that reaches out from the clouds, a familiar theme again in tarot, like the two peaks here. You can think of them back there in the distance there, the mountains. You can also look upon that as as a doorway into something new. It can be presented in a variety of different ways: to mountains, to trees, to poles, to towers. Any kind of an opening through suggests perhaps the middle way even. And so that's what I think you're seeing there. I think it's more indicative of the middle way. But you're transforming will into compassion, basically. And so here we have the genesis of will, the genesis of something creative, the genesis of new ideas, new experiences, manifestation from an unknown source. Now here, with the Page of Pentacles, we see trees in the distance, we see a mountain in the distance. It looks like there might be some kind of body of water that separates it, but it's too low to see because it kind of looks like he's up high here. The Page of Pentacles is about study and focus. So it's about contraction, whereas the Ace of Wands is about expansion, okay? But what we're talking about here with the Page of Pentacles is a conscientious young person, somebody who's a student, he's reliable, he's dependable, all things that are indicative of the earth element. So basically we are blending, instead of will with emotion, like in temperance, we're blending will then with grounding. So maybe an external focus versus an internal focus, but you're basically looking at two sides of the same coin here. Now, if this were an air card, then we would be raising the intensity, wouldn't we? But the Pentacles allows us to perhaps be more realistic in our expression of the fire element, doesn't it? Whereas if it were a water card, it would just simply suppress it and maybe just say, look, you're just out of control, your mouth's running, your attitude is wrong, and we need to introduce a little more compassion. But with Pentacles, you're really looking at an active principle versus maybe a more grounding principle, and balancing the two. Maybe this is about you wanting to go and do something else out in the world versus taking care of what needs to happen at home. Maybe there's an imbalance there, and the page is just here to remind us that in all of this, creative momentum, this impetus, this genesis of something new happening, don't forget your other responsibilities. And this, of course, is from a higher self perspective, because you've got a 5 energy with temperance, which is change, plus 1 from the ace. So that's a 6. And so you're looking at a 6 energy there. So higher self is definitely informing all of that. Let's look at a rune, though. Well, of course, because you have temperance in the center. So, your major cards, I view those as soul archetype cards. So it's higher self just saying, look, this is part of the overall process that you're going to be going through. The small cards, the minor cards, they just tell you what that's going to look like, or possibly what that's going to look like. But here we have Birkenau, an earth element rune. I believe it's the 18th. And so you're talking about completion there and endings with a 9. Yeah, it's a 9 energy. And I'm going to draw this so you can see what Birkenau is comprised of. You can think of these as just single runes, but in truth, they're bind runes, aren't they? If you look, and a note on that, I'm just going to tell you this. So I do my ancestry. I have an ancestry.com account, and I went looking for witches. I thought they would be on my maternal side. They weren't. They were, along with all the royalty, they're on the paternal side, and so it's nuts. But one of the people I'm related to, and God, I want to say he's an uncle. I don't think he's a grandfather, but Harold Bluetooth, he was a king, and he was called Bluetooth. I think it's Gorman's son or Gorham's son or something. Anyway, son of Gorman or Goran. Um, but the Bluetooth symbol is a bind rune, and I mean, so I'm related to that guy. It's just, and I'm into, and I do runes, and I always have. It's so bizarre. It's like, well, of course, you know. But I didn't know that for the longest time. Well, here you have Birkenau. Now, you got a lot of different runes here that make it up. You've got Isa, the 11th rune of the Elder Futhark, and a Norn rune of the present moment, a static realm, freezing things into place, binding things together, basically. Binding us in love and fertility and family and all of that. We also have Laguz, another water element. So is Isa. And Laguz is about flow. But then we have the catalytic presence. We have Kenaz 3 times. Reversed toward the self. In its traditional expression, a non-reverse expression, that's the one in the center. What Kenaz is, it's the 6th rune of the Elder Futhark. And what Kenaz is the torch. It is the light of spirit that is either expressing within or without. And when we talk about Birkenau and fertility, what we're talking about there, and it being an earth rune and about family and all of that, in order that we are successful in that regard, we really need to be turning the light of spirit within more so than without, because love begins inside, right? So the light of spirit begins within and then expresses outward. And we're doing it in balance, as you can see, because you've got it balanced coming in, right? But it has to be more heavily weighted, you know, coming from you and not from without, basically, because you are spirit. So you wouldn't be drawing spirit to you as much as simply remembering that that's what you are. You basically remember your truth. So I think that when we're talking about Birkenau, we're also talking about temperance, and we're talking about balancing, you know, again, will or spirit, because spirit can have will to it. Obviously, invoking, manifesting into form is a fiery thing to do. You invoke your will to make things happen, to manifest. But at the same time, you've got to be easy about it. You've got to be balanced. You've got to be grounded. You have to be aware of your impact on other people. People with too much fire get carried away, and they're just, you can't depend on them to be calm when they need to be calm. They tend to, you know, bow up and rise to the occasion a little bit too much. But whereas with Birkenau, if you take the message of this, then you know that you only have one place that you're doing that in. Can you see that? Right here. The other two are pointing inward. Let's see what the, what have I done with my, there it is. I love this thing. It's got LED lights on the other side of it, and it's just, I love it when I'm looking at cards, you know. Did I do it again? Okay, well, Carcer again. No. Oh, no, not Carcer again. Ooh, is that a Missio? Yeah. I thought I did Carcer again. I did it twice in a row. And Carcer's about self-imprisonment. We got those 2 days in a row. And but today we have a little bit of loss. Missio is about loss, and I will draw that out for you. But it's not necessarily emotional loss, although it can be. It could just be loss of something. And here's your geomancy rune, a Missio. We have active presence on fire and water. Interesting, because of temperance. And then passive influence on air and on earth. And it's read fire, air, water, and earth. So I think that the loss likely has to do with it must be the balance that we strike. I keep focusing on the Ace of Wands. You know, we can get carried away. And I think that if that's what since we've got this in the position of the first card, we're essentially transmuting will into something more grounded so that it preserves our security. So we have to lose some of that lack of self-control, maybe. You could look at it that way. I'm not sure what. Let me look something up here and see. Here we go. Let me find a missio. It's an earth. Let's see. It's an earth element, so it aligns with pentacles. But I don't think we want to. So we end up there, Venus and Taurus. Now it's also thought to be, depending on who you talk to, if it's Agrippa views this as a fire rune instead of an earth rune. Mercury and Libra. So that would be, and if you're talking about loss, then you're talking about a loss of balance. Okay, that's what this is. I'm so glad I looked at that. Even as an earth rune, Venus and Taurus, that's kind of where you get to thinking, well, maybe it's a loss of well, you could be loss of security, a loss of emotional security, maybe. But I think here, if we look at it from Agrippa's standpoint, the fire element with Mercury and Libra, the kind of loss there is about balance. And so and that's where we look at temperance, and we find the balance through temperance. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad I did that. I think I might start maybe I'll keep this page open or something, or print it out or something so I've got it handy. I think it's helpful sometimes, especially when you're looking at the geomancy, to take a look at, what's the element associated with it and what are the planets and the signs involved, because with geomancy, and I put this in my most recent book, Witch Notes. It's just a small book of correspondences, basically. The ones that I use all of the time. I just wanted a cheat sheet. Remember in the past, like in the 90s, you used to be able to buy these little cheat things you could set up on your keyboard, and then you knew what Control F2 did and all of that. You could also buy them in little booklet form, and they were just lists of the different codes and just how the different menus functioned and all of that. And it was just a cheat book. Well, I have always wanted something like that. And I mean, I have different grimoires. I have all of it there, but that's not written on fun paper. And you can't always, I'll show you my main one here. I mean, this is my main grimoire, and I mean, you can't always see things, right? And plus it's like this, so it's not particularly useful. And because I published it on Kindle, see, I can have it right here on my iPad, and it's lit up. Otherwise, it's a relatively small book. I think, is this it here? Oh, this is here. Now, this is a proof copy because you see it's got this thing here. If you buy it, it doesn't look like that. And the Kindle version doesn't have this cover either. It's got a black moon cover. I don't know. I guess I should have started with this first, and then I would have seen that I had to use this to make it. But I couldn't get the other to be clear enough that they would accept it for the cover, so I don't know. I ended up having two different covers for this. So, but anyway, it's not very big, but it has, it's like, I don't know, Well, I mean, it's like over 150 pages, 167 pages, but the point is that it's small enough and it's just got everything that I need, right? Anyhow, so I can just look at that if I want to, but it's nicer to have it on my iPad. But anyway, the thing is that taking a look at this, you get an idea when you start looking at how things are composed. And obviously, with geomancy, not everybody agrees on what that is. And so, in the book, I included not just the accepted way that it is, where the more current ones, the more current geomancers, how they view this whole classification. I also included Agrippa's in there as well. I just think that there was enough of a difference there that he just saw it differently, that I think sometimes you just have to have both ideas. I'm not sure who's right or wrong. I suspect that, it's probably a blend of both. But in any event, I think that Agrippa's understanding of the energies, the planetary and astrological energies, zodiac energies surrounding or involved in at least this particular geomancy rune, I think it makes sense, and I think it basically defines the underlying sense of the reading. That obviously we need to be in a little bit different balance today. We want the notion of transmutation at work. We want to move ourselves, and in transmutation, you don't want to transmute from the level of the negative, or what it is you're trying to transmute into something else. You don't want to put your focus there, because if you do, you feed it. All right. If you put your focus then on where you want to go, which is more grounded and more centered and more family oriented and more collective consciousness oriented, or do you want to, be out there and shining? And that's fine too. It's just that you've got to do it in balance with the whole, being grounded. You just don't want to get so carried away because here's the thing. If you do, sometimes people just stop listening to you, right? So kind of like Turley on the witness table today. It's like, what happened to you? You used to not be like this. I don't know. Sometimes, and I know this because I'm a Libran, and, we can argue points. My youngest son can do this. He's a Scorpio, and he can do it. He could argue a point, to the nth degree, even when he doesn't believe it. And he'll take the opposing view and just debate. And that this is not what he thinks, but he can argue it really well. It just makes me insane. But anyway, but I have to have everything in balance. And the problem is, I like to see the whole picture. And so I'll be looking at this aspect and that aspect and that aspect and that aspect. And it's obviously, so I'm kind of the same way, as I can't quite, I'll eventually, I know what I think about something, but there's so many other things to think about, that could possibly inform the whole thing. So you can see where we can kind of get into that little morass of, God, I don't even know what to call it, just getting stuck in the whole intelligentsia of it all. I don't think that's what he's doing, but I suspect that lawyers and law professors, people that argue and debate and look at all sides and have to consider all sides, you have to be able to do that. It's just when we get stuck there, it's kind of hard to get out of it. So anyhow, that's what I do. Anyway, so I guess that's it. Again, moderation today. It's not that you don't want to manifest something new and be really creative. It's just that you want to be sure to remain somewhat grounded within it so that you can see all sides of it, including the practical side of it that maybe your will just doesn't want to see. So in any event, I guess that's it. I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming. Again, check out my blog and give that a look. And again, I'm gonna as soon as I finish here, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. I'm just going to assume that they're not going to be back for a while, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this elemental type of correspondence thing for over at Patreon, and I guess I do it on YouTube, but there's a thing you can click that you select that says that it's unlisted or something. And so in order to see it, you actually have to go over there, become a patron, and I don't know. Anyway, what I may do at some point is make it public. They let you do that they can set it for Patreon members or patrons, and then sometime down the road it'll go public, and so I'll probably do that. But I don't know. I guess I would have to change it though, wouldn't I, in YouTube? So anyway, I'll have to think about how this is all new for me. So again, stepping outside my comfort zone, not at all comfortable with any of this. So anyway, I'm not someone who can promote myself. You have to know that every time I do it, it is excruciating. So anyhow, thanks again for coming by. We'll see you tomorrow. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.